Hey there everyone, it's Russell. Welcome to the Reading Fabricator, and today I present to you a frontrunner for the best of 2023, The Woman in the Dunes by Kōbō. I know we're already a week in, we're only just a week in, but this to me is already a frontrunner. It blew my mind straight away. It's my reintroduction into Japanese literature. The only other Japanese author I've read is apart from one mission book, it's mostly been Murakami, so I'm pretty new to the whole idea of Asian books. And a lot of people recommended The Woman in the Dunes as being sort of like this nightmarish Kafka-esque type book, just unlike anything else out there. It's highly acclaimed. A lot of contemporaries and critics at the time just hail it as a masterpiece. I mean, Yukio Mishima, of all people, the highly controversial writer, he held it as a masterpiece. He absolutely loved the book, and I can see why now that I've read it. It's so different from anything else that I've read. Just a fascinating read. I was hooked straight away from the opening pages all the way to the end. And it takes place in 3 acts. The story of Nikki Junpei, who is a school teacher, an insect enthusiast, and a self-professed entomologist. He comes down from Tokyo by train, and in the opening second chapter, he shows up at the train station, and the way he's described, it's almost like he's a mountain climber, that he's an explorer. He's just got all these stuff that he's carrying, backpacks and that sort of thing, and just the way people are viewing him. And he spends the day at the beach, just looking for all these things, and he spends so much time there that he misses the last bus that leaves at the end of the day. So he's stranded there. He's stranded on this beach in these dunes in an isolated location, and he comes across this derelict fishing village. Next to the fishing village is this large chasm, this massive pit. It's like 10 meters deep. In the pit is this very rundown sort of house looking thing, like a shanty house. And he looks at it, and he gets approached by this old villager there who becomes very wary of him, who asks him if he's with the government, is trying to probe him with information, trying to see if he's of anyone of any importance. After being told no, Nikki proclaims that no, he's just a school teacher. The old man goes back to another group of fellas just in the distance, just looking at him, and then they're arguing amongst themselves, and then eventually they come and offer him to spend the night there and leave in the morning, of which he agrees. He agrees because he thinks they're being hospitable. So they find him shelter, which turns out to be that house at the bottom of the pit, and they lower him down there by using a rope ladder. Then this is where the problems start. When he gets down there, he meets a woman, this 30-year-old woman there, who appears to sort of not be all right in the head. She seems to lack sort of social cues and doesn't seem to understand him all that well, him being a city boy as such. But she treats him quite hospitably. She cooks him dinner. She gives him room to rest. He seems a bit confused because it seems as though there's nowhere to sleep. But come morning, when he gets up to leave, he sees that the rope ladder is no longer there. He is trapped in this massive pit, that is surrounded by sand, that is always encroaching on him, is always coming down, is always threatening to just completely go over the house. And he finds out that her job is basically every day to shovel sand and get rid of it and send it up there in buckets for the villagers to pick up and dispose of. In response to that, they keep her alive by bringing water down to her, and they just refuse to let Nikki up. He is stranded there. He cannot figure out why. And this is where the Kafka-esque type emotions come into play, or thematics come into play. This is where I'm thinking, okay, so is Kōbō, is he influenced by Kafka? And then I found out through research that he was indeed influenced, and his favorite writers were in fact Dostoevsky, Franz Kafka, and Edgar Allan Poe. And there's a little bit of all three of those in this, mostly Kafka, but there is a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe with regards to the horror element. When I view the way that sand is described in this book, it's almost like a monster in of itself, this monster that is always around them, that is always threatening to annihilate them. Sand is a constant theme here. It is the law of sand. Sand will always win out in the end. So I find that to be a very frightening prospect indeed, and certain parts of this book had a very nightmarish element to it. It's quite cleverly written. It's quite very well detailed. I really fell for it quite hard, especially in the latter half of the book. So naturally, the main character, he freaks out. He panics. He eventually starts abusing this woman in the dunes, and is saying for her to just please ask them to let the rope ladder down so he can get up. He is pleading when he sees them at the top of the pit, just looking down at him. He is pleading with them to let him up, and they just will not do it. They just cannot fathom a reason to be able to do it. They have trapped him there, and he cannot figure out why. And you, as the reader, for quite a long time cannot figure out why as well. So it's sort of a mystery in and of itself. What starts out as a day ends up going to 2 days, ends up going to 3, and it just continues on from there. He becomes so frantic. He becomes absolutely distraught about the whole notion of it. He is swearing. He's just absolutely distraught about everything, about his situation, proclaiming that he is of importance and that they will come and find him and that he will sue them and take them to court and that sort of thing. Not that they care at all, but because they need to work in order to get this water, he has to basically just get in line and help remove the sand. He figures this out because he tied up the woman and just left her there, and for about a day or so the sand just kept on coming in and it wasn't being removed. So they know the villagers know for a fact that when the sand is being moved, because they have like a fire watch tower keeping an eye on them at all times. So it's a very haunting nightmare to be a part of. During an altercation with the woman after she's released from her ropes over a shovel, what progresses turns into a sort of a devious type of sexual relationship between the two. And it's this sexual relationship which is detailed about 130 pages into the book, where you get this almost essay-like structure told from Nicky's point of view, from his frame of mind at the time, which proves to be quite an interesting little piece altogether. So I'm going to read that for you now. He vaguely sensed that there were two kinds of sexual desire. For example, on the basis of the Mobius circle, when you courted a girl, you always began, it seemed, with lectures on nutrition and taste. That is, before you got around to sex. Food exists only in an abstract sense for anybody dying of hunger. There isn't any such thing as the taste of Kobe beef or Hiroshima oysters. But once one's belly is full, then one begins to discern differences in taste and textures. Sexual desire was the same. First came desire in general, and only after that did particular sexual tastes evolve. And sex couldn't be discussed in general. It depended on time and place. Sometimes you needed a dose of vitamins, sometimes a bowl of eels and rice. It was a well thought out theory, but regrettably not a single girlfriend had offered herself to him in support of it, with a readiness to experience sexual desire in general or sex in particular. That was natural. No man or woman is wooed by theory alone. He knew this, but he naively observed the theory of the Mobius circle and kept repeatedly pushing the doorbell of an empty house only because he did not want to commit spiritual rape. To be sure, he himself wasn't so romantic as to dream of pure sexual relations. You could do that when you were looking death in the eye, like the bamboo grass that bears seeds just as it is beginning to wither, like starving mice that repeatedly and frantically copulate as they migrate, like tuberculosis patients who are all seized by a kind of sex madness, like the king or ruler who dwells in a tower and devotes himself to establishing a harem, like the soldier for whom every moment is precious as he awaits the enemy attack and who spends those final moments masturbating. Fortunately, however, man is not indiscriminately exposed to the dangers of death. Man no longer fears to death. Man no longer needs to fear. Even in winter, he has been able to free himself of the seasonal sexual urge. Yet when the struggle is over, weapons become an encumbrance. Order has come about, and the power to control sex and brute force lies within man's grasp, in place of nature's. Thus, sexual intercourse is like a commutation ticket. It has to be punched every time you use it. Of course, you must check to see that the ticket is genuine, but this checking is terribly onerous. It corresponds precisely to the complications of order, all kinds of certificates, contracts, licenses, ID cards, permits, certificates of title, authorizations, registrations, carrying permits, certificates of membership, letters of recommendation, notes, leases, temporary permits, agreements, income declarations, receipts, even certificates of ancestry. Every conceivable type of paper must be mobilized into action. That really opened my eyes a bit. So that is from his frame of mind with regards to this sexual desire that he all of a sudden faces with this woman in the dunes during this altercation with Shovel, where he's just trying to get out. And that's basically the plot of the first half of the book. I'm not going to spoil with it, so it's up to you if you want to read the book to find out whether or not he actually tries to escape. If he does escape, if he chooses to stay, I won't say any more than that. But it's really just a tale of just being stranded, of being stranded and facing your own fears and your own demons, and the idea of this always encompassing sand, just being surrounded by it. And in all honesty, the book, even though it's been deemed Kafka-esque, the book that it reminded me the most of was actually J.G. Ballard's Concrete Island, which is the tale of this man who's cheating on his wife. He crashes off a highway or an overpass into this concrete island that's surrounded by roads that are all 10 meters or so high that he cannot get up. He's stranded there, and it's eerily similar to this. I think Concrete Island's written after this, and maybe Concrete Island took influence from this book. I'm not entirely sure. That itself was a good book. So if you do like Woman in the Dunes, then check out Concrete Island, because I think you might actually like that one as well. Is the front runner book for the year for me, even though we're a week into 2023. I was absolutely amazed by it. I really adhered to its writing. It really gripped me. It's tense and simultaneously thrilling in a way as well. And it kept me engaged to find out what would happen in the end. And as a piece of, you could also almost describe it as sort of like a psychological drama as well, especially with regards to the woman who you find out pretty early in the book. She proclaimed that she lost her husband and daughter from a typhoon where it pushed all the sand and pretty much swallowed them up. Whether or not you choose to believe that or not, I'm not entirely sure. I was on the fence about it. I don't know if she was lying or not. Considering that she's not right in the head. So it leaves some mysteries up for debate. But on a whole, I was really taken with this, and it is Kōbō Abi's most well-known book, one of the most acclaimed books of Japanese literature, published in the early 60s, adapted a couple of years later into a hugely acclaimed movie. One that Russian auteur Andrei Tarkovsky, for those of you who don't know, he only directed like 7 movies in his life. He's very good at what he does. He listed the Woman in the Dunes movie as in his top 10 favorite movies of all time. I've finally tracked the movie down, and I can actually watch the Criterion version of it on YouTube, so thank goodness. I'm going to watch it later today, and it looks absolutely surreal as all hell. I watched some scenes from it already. I've seen the trailer for it, and it looks unlike anything out there. It truly is the very definition of like a Kafka-esque trailer. So this will prove to be an enlightening experience for me watching the film. In fact, after watching the film, I might even go back and reread the book. So it's a good endorsement for me. I recommend this book. I think you will like it. I know I sure as hell did. And if you have any queries or questions, or if you like this book and have already read it, let me know below what you think of it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.